Now, one of the most simple, most important, and most overlooked aspect of fish keeping is oxygen. Now, a tank like this is a really common situation. You've got a fish tank with a filter built into the top, a little air stone going in the back, and you think to yourself, Bob's your uncle, this will be fine. But because this tank's got a really tight surface area, the surface tension of the water is actually way too high. Now, this tank has got hardly any fish in it, and I've just tested the oxygen level, and it's barely, not even 1. We really want the oxygen to be about 8. So there's basically no oxygen in this water. So therefore, fish are going to continue to die, even though we've got an air stone. So you look at the bubbles and you think, oh, should be right. It's not a reality, because what happens is you end up with what's called low redox potential. Low redox potential means that due to the low oxygen, which is a result of high surface tension, the redox falls. Now, if the redox falls, the bacteria breaks waste down really slow. Now, that means that for the amount of waste you've got, you need to grow heaps of bacteria to break that amount of waste down. And because you're growing heaps of bacteria, that bacteria uses heaps of oxygen. And that makes the oxygen go down more. And then if the oxygen goes down more, the redox falls more, then you need more bacteria to break down the same amount of waste, and you end up in a bad place. So, in a situation like this, the best thing we could do is put a power head in and agitate the surface. We've also got to make sure that any vents in the tops remain clean, so air can easily get into the aquarium. And make sure that any filters on your air pump are nice and clean, and then that will likely solve this problem. So the aim of the game is to get the oxygen about 8. Getting a JBL oxygen test is a really simple, really easy, really handy thing to have. Now, right next to these fish is some fighting fish. They're going absolutely fine, because they might be in super low oxygen too, but they don't really care, because I'll just take their oxygen off the surface. They're not as oxygen demand as these sorts of fish are. So if you're concerned about your tank, check the oxygen, make sure you've got really good surface agitation. An air stone's great to make sure you're getting oxygen in there. And then just remember that any outlet of any filter is actually an oxygen deficit. Because you think, oh, the water's coming down out of the filter and aerating, but that's really not the case. Because the filter ends up full of so much bacteria that it sucks all the oxygen out of the water. Therefore, the water returning to the aquarium is basically in deficit. Anyway, if you've had any sort of oxygen issues, or you think you might, pull a note at the bottom of this video. Very easy thing to check. But you can't just take a test down to your aquarium shop and get them to test it. You have to test it in the aquarium, straight out of the aquarium. Because as soon as you chuck it in a jar, take it down the shop, the oxygen level has changed. It must be a live test. So you must either buy yourself a test or have an aquarium expert come and test it for you. Really simple to fix. Chuck in a power head. Bob's your uncle. Or Bob's your mum's new boyfriend.